Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out this evening. I will call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Education. It's Monday, September 27th, 2021 at 6:08 p.m. Let the record show that all board members are present except for Mr. Glenn, who is on the phone with us. If you would, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, board, we have an agenda before us. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Jared and Dr. Fegling. And I would like to amend that motion to, where is it? There it is. Under business item number 2, I would like to add discussion and possible approval for the order. So that way we can have a discussion prior to making a motion. So I will make that motion. I need a second.
Second.
Jared.
What's it for? What do you say? I'm sorry. I didn't hear you say.
So under business, section 8, number 2, changing the wording from approval of to discussion and.
Sure.
Okay. So that way we can have a discussion prior to making the motion. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so the motion is to amend the agenda with discussion and approval on number 2 of the business items. If there's no further comments, discussion, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is amended. Now I need approval of the amended agenda.
So moved. Second.
Paul and Jared, any discussion?
Casey, close enough.
Oh, I keep doing this, sorry. We amended it. Now I'm making a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Well, it's already on the floor. So we're,
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. First up this evening, we have recognitions. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Glass.
Well, I say it over and over again, we got great staff out there that are doing a tremendous job and tremendous things. And this next person I'm about to introduce is no exception to that. Ms. Rob McKinley, come on up. The JAG program. The JAG program is just finishing up its first year, and Ms. McKinley got a national award of the JAG Specialist Award for the nation, and I'm just tremendously honored that you serve our district and the things that you go through. And I know Zach Payne is back there bragging on you every day. Zach, you want to say a few words about Ms. McKinley?
Honestly, you hit it really well, Dr. Glass. Ms. McKinley she's just an outstanding teacher. That's the best way we can put it. She's exactly who you would want teaching your own child. She focuses every single day on building relationships with kids and just doing anything she can to check in with them. She is phenomenal. That's the best way I can put it. We're very, very lucky to have her at CAP. She's one of our team leaders for sure.
Ms. McKinley, thank you for all you do for our kids.
I brought with me our new president for our Career Association for JAG, and that's Chandler Bartless. We just ended our elections last week, and we were hot on the campaign trail for quite some time, and I think the kids had a blast. And this year, our JAG, our Career Association officers are going to also serve as student government for Central Academy. So.
Excellent.
We're on limited time, it sounds like.
Next up, we have our terrific Tigers for the month of September. We're pleased to recognize them for all their efforts, their service to others, their leadership, and their scholarship. We also would like to recognize the parents for all they do. As we call each student forward, we would like to ask them to stand and be recognized as well.
All right, we have Alma Schroeder first.
Alma Schroeder Elementary, Graham Grable, 4th grade, son of Emily and Eric Grable. Graham is consistently kind, carries himself with integrity, and is a friend to all his peers. He has shown excellent character for multiple years at Alma Schroeder. Keep up the great work, Graham.
Fantastic.
Thanks. Good job, man. Put your skin in there, we'll get a group shot. This talent, are we gonna get a group shot? Are we?
Well, yeah, I guess we can.
All right, stay ready.
Furniture is here.
Blanchard Elementary, Geneva Bullock and Nora Bullock, 4th grade, daughters of Andrea and Joe Bullock. Geneva and Nora are both fabulous role models and set the standard high for their peers. They are right there to offer assistance when a peer is in need. They are attentive in class, follow instructions immediately, take pride in their work, and are always striving to do their best. Geneva and Nora are the sweetest people to everyone they encounter.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Once you stand right over here, we'll get a group shot in just a second. Okay.
Clifford Elementary, Nathan Crowell, 4th grade, son of Rachel and Jason Simmons. Nathan is an exceptional student who consistently shows our GUR expectations inside and outside of the classroom. He is kind and helpful to his peers, and he is someone who can be counted on if a helping hand is needed. Nathan has been a great leader when it comes to helping out with safety patrol. He is definitely a role model for other students at Clifford.
Great picture. Thanks. All right, we have middle school.
Central Middle School, Madison Lowry, 6th grade, daughter of Sandy and Eddie Lowry. Madison is a wonderful example of a student leader. She's a role model for others and walks and talks the CMS expectations. She always has a smile on her face and a kind word for anyone that she meets. Madison actually designed our CMS staff shirts this year with the motto, "A Cup of Kindness." She truly is a cup of kindness. We're proud to say that Madison is the CMS Tiger. Continue to roar, Madison.
Academy, all right, you guys stuck in on this. All right, so the Academy's here.
Right.
Come on out, guys.
Central Academy, DeAndre Bellis, 11th grade, son of Crystal Dupree. DeAndre is an absolute pleasure to have in class. He's engaged in class activities and discussion and is always working to make sure that no one feels left out in the classroom. His peers feed off of his contagious positive energy, and he's always smiling. You can even tell that he's smiling under the mask. DeAndre is focused on making the most out of the school day and is working hard towards graduation. Everyone at CA is so proud of where he is on his journey.
Okay, perfect. Let's get a group picture then with everybody.
Stay by me. There you go.
Awesome.
You get us in?
We can get you in. That's right. We'll work back to glass. That's all. You can stand. That's right. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, next up this evening, we have a section for information, proposals, or comments from the audience. We had several people that wish to address the board. In no particular order. The first one is Raisa Armstrong. Just to remind you, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. For time and also so I can just stay on track, I'm going to just read a statement that I've prepared for you. Since the Cape School District is choosing to adhere to and follow the CDC guidelines, the onus falls to you, the school district, to ensure that my child receives a fair, equal, and excellent education. Right now, what I have personally witnessed from my son's experience, you are failing. You are failing my child with your quarantining policies. Your quarantining policies are also discriminatory. I will first address the issue of failing to provide a fair, equal, and excellent education. For a child who is quarantined to maybe receive an email with an assignment or log into an app to see what the day's assignment is, not an excellent education. To have no instruction from a teacher during his time of quarantine is not equal education. Not one teacher reached out to him during his quarantine. He was at times even denied access to assignments, further delaying his progress. Again, no personal instruction from the teacher was offered. Thankfully, my son knew his limits and reached out to a few of his teachers requesting explanation and help. In the course of a year, my healthy, well child has had a total of 6 quarantines. Out of all quarantines, he was never symptomatic, nor did he become sick. If his quarantines had fallen, if they had not fallen on school holidays or summer break, that would have equated to close to 50 days without any classroom instruction or follow-up from the teacher. Let me remind you, he was well during all of those days. That is not fair, equal, or excellent. If I were not employed by my family or running my own business, I would be facing a potential job loss if I had not already been fired. I would be required to take off work to provide my child care, causing too many missed days at work. Now, to continue, let me discuss how the school district's policy of quarantining is discriminatory. How is being fully vaccinated different from unvaccinated, and why does it require different protocols? The vaccine does not make one immune from COVID-19. It only reported to potentially lessen the symptoms or the chance for hospitalization. People who've been fully vaccinated can still contract COVID-19, and they can also spread it. You are forcing healthy children who have not been vaccinated to quarantine at home, and yet you're allowing fully vaccinated children who are also healthy to mask and monitor and stay in school. The risk of the fully vaccinated spreading the virus is the same as the unvaccinated. Considering the scientific evidence that both the fully vaccinated and the unvaccinated can contact the spread of the virus, it is discriminatory that my child should be required to quarantine and be subjected to a lesser education. Why can't the unvaccinated healthy child also mask and monitor and stay in school to receive a fair, equal, and excellent education? Thank you.
Ma'am, just one question. What school does your child attend?
My son attends the high school.
Thank you. Next, we have a request from Clayton Camp. Again, sir, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. First off, I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I am also a parent of a kindergarten student and a 7th grade student in the district. This year has definitely been challenging so far for our family as well as many others. I can tell that already. The situations we are facing this year with COVID are stressful to say the least. I feel like we need to get back to some normalcy for our students as much as possible. With that being said, my 7th grade student has not had a normal school year this far. He has been quarantined twice in the first month of school, missing 9 of the first 22 days of school. During this whole time, not one symptom, completely healthy. The first quarantine was that of the whole entire junior high football team. He did not have any close contact with a student that tested positive, but was still quarantined because the whole team was. Remind you, this took place at an outside practice, and also in the locker room, all students are masked. Okay, the second time he was quarantined was when he was fully masked in the classroom, but the student seated next to him was improperly wearing his mask. My child did not even have close contact with that student for more than 15 minutes, but the teacher was able to say he did. Okay, it was essentially his word versus the teacher's word. So at that point, also the student tested positive, was not properly wearing his mask. And it looks bad on the teacher if we're enforcing the mask protocol and the teacher knows that the student is improperly wearing a mask for more than 15 minutes. Why are we not doing anything about that? If we're gonna enforce the mask policy, let's actually enforce it if that's what we're gonna do. Because according to the guidelines we're following, you can have both students that are masked, and if one tests positive, then the other does not have to quarantine. But if one's improperly wearing the mask and one is fully masked wearing it properly, then you still have to quarantine the one that didn't test positive. It's absurd to me. We should not be quarantining masked students, much less a completely healthy masked student. If we were gonna mandate this, we have to stick to it because nobody wants to wear a mask. We all know that. If we're gonna do it, let's stick to what we're doing and make sure that it's followed to the T, because it's obnoxious that my 7th grade student had to miss, I think it was 7 days that time, missed 7 football practices, including 1 game, gets behind on school. Okay, he's at home. They had a block of instruction in person during that time he was at home. He got 15 minutes when he came back to review over it. It was a hands-on block of instruction, and he received a 50% on that hands-on. Okay, my student is a straight A student. It took his grade down to an A-. If he quarantines again, there's a good chance that he's gonna be a B. And to some people, that might not be a big deal. To our household, it is. He was exempt from assignments, which does not hurt his grade, but it also does not allow him to raise his grade from that A- back up to an A. When are we gonna start taking into consideration our children's mental and emotional health? Right? My son has already came to myself and my wife and said how he's already nervous that he's gonna be quarantined in the next month or so again. It's getting out of control, just quarantining healthy kids. We're fortunate and blessed enough that we have a household that can provide. Some families are not. Some don't have internet, hot water. They don't have food at the table. We don't know if anybody's supervising them. It's causing a financial burden on a lot of people. Once again, we're blessed. We have salary jobs. We're tenured. We're able to do what we do. Some people do not have that. And when they have to miss work, like you spoke about earlier, they're losing jobs over this because their kids are at home and they're 6 or 7 or 8 years old. We can't leave those kids. Maybe they don't have grandparents around that can help. So what are we going to do to, go ahead.
Your time is up.
Okay. What are we going to do to change the policy to make it better for our children? Because right now our children's interests are not in the best of the school district right now.
Next is Calvina Coutreau. Again, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Hey guys, I am not good at speaking in front of people, so I apologize for that, but thank you for hearing us out. I know that you guys are under a lot of stress, and no matter what you choose, someone's going to be upset. That's kind of just the way it is in decision making, so I totally understand that. However, number one, I have 4 kids in Cape School District. I'm a realtor, and for the last 5 years, I've had people tell me all the time, they're going to choose Jackson schools because they're so much better than Cape. And I'm like, no way. We need to fight that. You know, I've always vouched for Cape schools, and I still continue to try to do that. But at this point in time, we've had a few situations that have really just kind of broken my heart about Cape schools. One, for example, was my 5-year-old being quarantined. She is in kindergarten, and someone tested positive around her, and although they are masked throughout the day, she had to quarantine. It's for all students that's difficult. In her situation, it's very difficult. She is delayed due to past trauma, and it's very important for her to get the education, and it's very important for her to see people's emotions and to see their mouths moving and to understand what they're saying and how to articulate that. She cannot stay masked. She needs that. She needs to see people. So there's that aspect of these students that are really struggling and really need to see you. They need to see that expression. I've had a teacher tell one of my children that if they don't like the mask, then they should go to Jackson schools. That really bothered me because I've defended Cape schools so many times, and I feel like Cape is a great school, and I feel like for the most part you all have worked really hard to make sure that our students' best interest is at mind. And so to hear that from a teacher, to tell my kid that they should just move to Jackson schools, that's pretty tough. And then just the emotional aspect of my kids are awesome students. And I don't say that just because I'm biased, they really are. Most of the teachers that have had them before can vouch for them that they're really good kids, and they struggle. They struggle emotionally. They struggle with being able to just function normally. When you're wearing a mask all day, you can, even just sitting there, and know you're uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good to be breathing in basically your toxins. And so for these kids to be out doing things all day and then to have to continue to stay in their mask, hot and sweaty or whatever the case may be, that makes it a lot harder to focus and to learn. And so I would just ask that you would just give these students an option. I'm not saying take the mask away from everybody, but just give them an option. If they want to wear it, that's fine. If they don't want to wear it, don't force them. And another thing is that my kids are afraid that if they come into the school without a mask, that they may be judged because they're not wearing a mask, and that's not okay either. So that's all I'm asking. Just consider all of those things and maybe, consider an option for them. So, thank you.
Next, we have Crystal Eifert.
Hi, my
You
name is
have 3
Crystal.
minutes.
Thank you for your time. I am a mother and a healthcare professional, and first of all, I want to thank you all for everything that you do, all of your hard work, especially the educators for teaching our children. We're all here for the children, but parents have rights, and there's a statute in the Missouri Constitution that I will send you that says no rule or law shall compel any person to participate in a healthcare service, and masks are a medical device because they block oxygen and cause reabsorption of CO2, not to mention the absorption of the toxins that the body is trying to remove. And the oath that you board members took states that you support the Missouri Constitution. Masks are being recommended for combating COVID, which is contrary to the rules of science and common sense. The very boxes of the masks say that they do not block COVID virus. The COVID virus is spread by aerosol particles, which are small enough to go through masks very easily. And I have literature to support everything that I'm stating, and I will be emailing it to you. with all the scientific data and all the studies. And I could give all the statistics and the numbers, but any one of us could do that here to bend to our favor, so that's pointless. I want to talk right now about the dangers and ineffectiveness of masking children. Like I said, masks are being recommended for combating COVID, which is contrary to facts and science. There's several studies sponsored by the NIH to that exact fact, even though they choose to ignore it, which is why we're struggling with this and because why we're not seeing any of this go away with masks. You cannot make it go away with masks or vaccines. The vaccines cause variants to spread, which keeps it in the community. It causes antibody-mediated viral enhancement and therefore sheds the pathogen. So we cannot stop the spread with vaccines or with masks. I don't blame the board for counterfactual policies because you would think it would be reasonable to listen to the CDC and the NIH, but if you read the facts and science that I send you, you will see how wrong it is. And if any of you guys have questions about this specific science that I will be emailing you, I would be more than happy to sit down with you individually and explain it. I also want to mention that there's a lot of local schools that are not enforcing masks. I'm sorry, I want to go back for a second. I wanted to talk about the risk outweighing the benefits real quick. I'm not going to go in super detail because I don't have a lot of time, but some of the studies are going to mention the CO2 inhalation being increased and the dangerous levels and videos of the OSHA workers doing that. Also that the mask is basically a petri dish because it breeds bacteria and toxins. And that one of the studies shows that by wearing a mask, the exhaled virus will not be able to escape and will concentrate in the nasal passages, entering the olfactory nerves and traveling into the brain. That's in a study and it's proven. Asymptomatic transmission of SARS-CoV-2 does not occur to any significant level. There's studies on that. And then there was a very, very large study that had several thousand subjects that I'm going to send you that proves that masked subjects and unmasked subjects were infected at the exact same rate. And so, like I said, I don't blame you for the policies, but the science is going against the masks. And these masks are not happening in schools. They're not happening in adult corporations like they are in schools. And you've seen all the big football games, all of the things on TV everywhere. None of this is happening with adults. And also, I'm sure you're not doing it in PE or at lunch either. There was another board meeting that I was at where there was a preschool teacher and also at, I want to mention at hospitals, where the symptomatic patients are coming in. They're not contact tracing. There was another board meeting that I was at. Okay, well, I just want to say that there's a mask and monitor policy. It's very effective. It was reviewed by a local law firm where the students mask for 10 days if they're subject to someone that is positive. And then if they're symptomatic, they go home. If they're not, they wear a mask for 10 days, and then they don't have to wear it anymore. It's gotten rid of all of this mess that you guys have to deal with and us parents. The law firm said that it is perfectly fine. There would be no reason for any lawsuit to be able to happen against the school based on that policy, and I will be sending you that. And I just want to ask for you please to suggest another opinion or another option, and that us parents have the right to choose.
And the last person this evening, Lisa Long. Again, you have 3 minutes, please.
Okay. Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'd like to address the safety of your students and staff. A climate of fear and oppression has been created, I will assume without intent. Your behavior modification plan to incentivize masking and vaccinating may have been with the intent to get to the end game of all this, but it has had an incredibly destructive effect on the well-being of those under your charge. I hope that you'll hear the stories that I have to share with a heart set on making things right. The first is from your elementary students in the district. Some of them were given a writing prompt asking, how do you feel about masks? Here's the answers, guys. It's not good. I have asthma. I want to take our masks off. Good. Terrible, bad, crazy. So sad with those sad face. I feel bad. Stupid, bad masks. They are disgusting and weird. I hate it. P.S. a lot in all caps. Mad, with 2 sad faces. It keeps us safe, but I think we should have breaks to breathe so I feel okay. Mad. I'm mad. Makes me mad reading this. Sad, mad, angry. No one listens to me. I feel awful. I feel sad. I don't like the masks because I can barely breathe. I feel like I can't breathe. Horrible, terrible, hate. I feel fine, and I don't like masks. Teachers in your district have been threatened with repercussions, including job loss if they speak up or fail to comply. I'm sharing that because I don't accuse any of you of doing that, but I also don't know that you know that's happening. I want you to know this is happening. Teachers who are strongly opposed to the vaccine are getting it out of fear from the coercive pressure being put on them. This is true. I have heard from them. They held out, they're scared. Teachers are telling students they fear for their jobs. This is in the older grades. Some teachers are telling students they fear for their jobs, and so they have to comply. Other teachers are using class time to pressure the kids to be vaccinated, and also to push the lie that masks keep them safe and that vaccines keep them safe. Your assistant superintendent was gracious enough to speak with me and share that some athletes, I think it was football players, were glad to get the vaccine in order to play their game. But my response to him that I also want to share with you is they weren't glad to get the vaccine, or they would have done it on their own. They were coerced to get the vaccine in order to be permitted to play, which some have a whole lot riding on, such as scholarships. They were manipulated, backed into a corner, preyed upon, and I'm guessing not provided informed consent either. Back to the end game of all this. Vaccines and masks are not going to get us there. We are 3 school years into this. The vaccine does not prevent transmission. My appeal to you is to end the COVID protocol altogether. Send sick kids home like you did pre-COVID. No more COVID testing. Allow masks for those who want them, and get back to educating. There have only been 149 deaths over the course of 1 year and 7 months in our county of approximately 80,000, and the average death is 81. 149 deaths over 1 year and 7 months.
Ma'am, your time
Over
is up.
80,000. Thank you.
You're welcome. That concludes our information, proposals, and comments from the audience section for the evening. Again, as I've said in the past, we always appreciate it when our citizens feel compelled to come before the board to share their opinions, their thoughts, their information, no matter what the situation is or no matter what the topic is. Always feel free to contact our board secretary to request your opportunity to come before the board. And you have your 3 minutes. So again, I appreciate that.
We've had another terrific tiger to show up.
Another terrific title? Okay. From which school?
He's back here.
Which school?
A couple schools, Thomas Schroeder and high school.
Okay. Terrific title?
What's that? Oh, no, this is, can I make a few comments?
No, sir. The procedure is you need to request prior to the meeting.
I called the office and administrator, the office assistant didn't say anything about that.
That would be bad. No, we can't.
You can come before it.
Can
come before
I
the
just
next
speak,
one.
can I just speak with you after the meeting?
Yeah,
That's fine. Absolutely. So do we have terrific tigers? Yeah.
No?
Was there another terrific title? Yes, right here, okay, perfect. Yeah, that's fine, come on up. What school? Franklin.
Franklin Elementary. Violet Robbins, 3rd grade daughter of Mary and Christopher Robbins. Violet is such a wonderful student to have in class. She comes to school ready to learn and always has a positive attitude. She can always be counted on to help others and to set a good example. She tries her best in all of her work. Way to go, Violet.
Because she's wearing a mask and that's fine. Thank you.
Don't, Mom, I'm pretty.
Good job, baby.
Congratulations.
Nice job.
Yeah, second. So Jeff. Oh, okay, hang on just a second. Jeff got disconnected.
You want to just put him on speaker?
We'll call right back. Just one good man. 27573. 275.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened.
No worries.
All right. All right, next up, we have our informational reports for the month. First up is the board president's report, and I don't have anything this evening. So next we have superintendent's report. Dr. Glass.
I want to start out the evening by acknowledging the loss of a young life at the high school. As you may know, Alex Powderly passed away over the weekend after a long battle with cancer. I ask that you please, all of us, take a moment to think about his family, his friends, and all the staff and students at CHS. Thank you. Please remember that our district will participate in the Great Shakeout earthquake drill on October 15th at 10:15 a.m. This is a nationwide event that helps make sure that schools and the businesses are prepared to respond for an earthquake. The CTC will be going through a strategic planning process. There are some career pathways that we need to focus on that aren't currently being offered. That's the reason for this process, to make sure that we are up to date with the times and the changing careers that are out there, and we want to make sure that we maintain our cutting edge. So that's all I got this evening.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Glass? All right, next up we have our academic services report.
We don't have any at this time. We're going to discuss our data next.
Okay. All right. How about instructional technology update?
More canvas, that's pretty much all I
All right. So I'm assuming the program's going well. Good. All right, next up we have our CTA report. We have a representative. Good evening. How are you?
Good.
Good.
CTA meets the first Wednesday every month. At 4 o'clock, we switched to meeting via Zoom just to reduce the risk of getting exposed or having to quarantine staff members. In our first meeting, we covered just becoming a member and the importance of being a member of MSTA and CTA. Not only are you covered with insurance through MSTA, but it also offers great PD for new teachers, veteran teachers, and uncertified staff as aides, custodians, nurses, and everything. So it's a well-rounded program for everybody in a building. In November, 4 of us will be attending convention. One of our members is presenting, that's Whitney Choate. So we're very excited about that. We're hoping we can have our trivia night in November, but depending on regulations of venues, we are not sure, so time and place are TBA. Our next meeting is October 6th at 4 o'clock. Zoom link is sent out to all CTA members, and all CTA members are welcome. It's not just for building reps or the executive board. And we do have some staff shout outs. So every month they fill out a form and we talk about them at the CTA meetings, and then I share them with Dr. Glass with our monthly meeting. Just a few things that I want to point out that they're all great, but I don't have a lot of time. We do want to give a shout out to the Jefferson Elementary teachers, staff, and students because their building is undergoing renovations right now, and they've had to make a lot of accommodations, moving things around and having noise and hustle and bustle. I used to work in that building. It's not that big to start with, so for them to have to do that is really great. Blanchard Kindergarten is really taking off with our new reading program, Super Kids. They've incorporated cooking in their first unit, which I think is really great because it's real life hands-on learning. And then Central Academy, one of our past students reached out to us and let us know about a great scholarship that she got to Three Rivers, and it was all because of her JAG program. And Miss McKinley got recognized, so we're bringing it up today because that just shows that even after she left Cape Public Schools, the program really did great things for her. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have our Treasurer and Finance Report.
That's me. Beginning August 1st, we had a beginning fund balance in our general fund of $12.6 million. We had an ending fund balance of $11.3 million. We're doing good. Month of November, our tax receipts start rolling in. This will be a successful year that we don't have to borrow for our tax anticipation note, which is a great thing. We've got cash and investment details of, we got about 12.2 in Commerce Bank. We've got 3.7 in Banterra, 7.4 in MOSIP, 3.1 in BOK Financial, and then we got 21,000 in scholarship accounts. So we're doing really well.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you for the update. Next, we have our support services report.
Good evening, board. I want to start off with an update with our food service. Most of you are aware, our supplying contracting company cut ties with not only us, but 26 other districts in southeast Missouri and many more across the state, which put us in overdrive in finding resources to serve our kids over 7,000 meals a day. That's including breakfast and lunch. So far, we've diversified out to various different businesses. We're using about 6 or 7 different services now. That has caused us to centrally locate our shipments, and then we send it out to the schools instead of having it delivered at the individual schools like before. We're also utilizing local places such as Sam's and Aldi's and Schnucks and Walmart's and so on and so forth, as well as Food Giant. We have got a new agreement set in place that should be good to go here in the next week and slowly get back to where we were before, but it's going to be a struggle. But Dana McClard and the rest of her staff have done an amazing job continuing to feed kids with options every day, and we're really proud of the hard work that our entire nutrition staff has continued to do. Construction update, Jefferson, most of the major groundwork, grade work has been completed. They've now moved inside on remodeling of the old cafeteria to get that prepared to become the new kitchen area. So as Ms. Ringer said earlier, there is some jackhammering going on in cutting the concrete floors and so on and so forth. So that'll just continue on. We're still currently on schedule. Dr. Glass mentioned before, in third week of October, we will be taking part in the Great Midwest Shakeout as a district, so earthquake drill district-wide. Then on October 19th, we're a host site for a regional CES MSBA meeting that'll bring in school administrators for various safety security topics, such as digital citizenship, human trafficking signs, how to identify that and what agencies to work with, and so on and so forth. Other than that, I have no further update unless you all have questions or concerns.
Does anyone have any questions? Regarding the food delivery situation, will that ever go back to how it was previously? I know they're having worker situations, but.
What we're finding is every company that we're working with is short on employees, whether it's warehouse workers or truck drivers or delivery vans. And so right now what our setup is to be utilizes one central drop location, which is our warehouse here at central office, and then from there we have district personnel dispersing it out. We do not have a timeline on when it could be dropped out to other buildings. After having gone through what we went through with our previous supplier, we're kind of hesitant to take anybody at their word yet until we actually see something and see what that workforce is, that they can make those deliveries happen. We've been told anywhere in the next 2 months, Christmas break, shortly after Christmas break, or even next year, that other suppliers would be able to get to that level. So this is nationwide. It's not just Southeast Missouri or the state of Missouri. This is something that every school district is facing across the country. So you have multiple companies, nationwide companies, that are trying to fill that shortage, fill that gap. You have the food manufacturers who are also discontinuing products. Crispitos are no longer being made. Tyson Chicken discontinued that. So a fan favorite within our district, there are no longer any more Crispitos. And so when those will start being manufactured again, I cannot answer that. That's just one.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for him? No?
No.
All right, next up we have board reports. First up is MSBA delegate report.
I don't have anything.
Nothing this month? How about a legislative report?
The only new, not a whole lot going on in the legislature right now, other than the board candidate filings. So for school board, so if anybody's interested to put your name in the hat, the filing dates are December 7th through December 28th. So they've shortened it up and made it a little more complicated to get enrolled. So other than that, that's all.
And anything from the Cape Public School Foundation?
Nothing other than grants have been submitted, so grant applications have been submitted, so they'll be reviewing that. That's it.
Okay. All right. That concludes our informational reports. Next up, we have a non-action item, which is the first reading of board policy JG-R1. And this policy has been revised for consistency with policy JG regarding student discipline. Trying to open it up to see what it does. Sorry, my computer's not opening yet. Well, mine's not opening. Do you know what?
Yeah, it's just basically we added some verbiage. MSBA puts these recommendations out to add verbiage, but basically we've kind of been inundated with
Keep scrolling down.
Vaping. We included vaping under the use of tobacco in there, kind of changing with the times.
So that was the only change?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, they're highlighted in there.
All right. So that's the first reading this month, and I'll bring it back for second reading and approval next month. Next up, we have approval of consent agenda items. And this month, we have minutes of previous meetings, August 23rd, 2021. There's two sets, August 31st, 2021, and September 14th, 2021. Payment of bills and breakfast and lunch prices for adults for the school year of 2021-22. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Items are approved. Next up this evening, we have our business items. First up is a motion to authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board with Premier Wireless for Wi-Fi equipment, installation, and service for 28 buses with a cost of $89,067.72, contingent upon E-rate funding. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Jared, Casey, discussion? Dr. Glass?
Is Brian here? Let's see.
Yes, sir.
Oh, there he is. Brian, you want to speak to this?
As part of the Emergency Connectivity Fund, we were able to request Wi-Fi for all of our buses for students to do homework either on field trips, just on the way to or from school, or even during sporting events. We just had to prove our need for it, and based on our free and reduced lunch count, plus the fact that we don't have Wi-Fi on any of our buses, it looks like we should receive funding for this. Give or take, maybe a few $100s here or there based on percentages. But I feel like we should receive most all this funding. And it's a complete turnkey system, installations included, so we wouldn't have to do anything with it.
If we change bus vendors, do we get the equipment back?
Yes, it is our equipment. Once this is installed, it's our equipment. And I've already talked to our current bus provider, and they have no problems having us install the equipment on it. So there shouldn't be any issues down the road with it. Like I said, it will be our equipment once it's purchased. So we should be good to go. Whether or not we decide to continue service on one or all the buses, it's our equipment to do with what we wish.
Anyone have any questions? Hearing none. Motion on the floor is to authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board with Premier Wireless for Wi-Fi equipment installation and services for 28 buses with a cost of $89,067.72 contingent upon E-rate funding. There's no further discussion. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So next up, we have discussion of order requiring face masks in Cape Girardeau Public School building. Okay, Dr. Glass, you want to start? Or?
Yeah, I can. First off, I'd like to say thank you for coming tonight. It is always good to hear from the parents and community members. I too am frustrated at times because I don't have a clear picture and a clear direction. Really, yeah, okay. Oh well. I'm here to listen to you, and that's what the superintendent does. And we respond to community concerns, student concerns, and parent concerns. I'm here to protect our students, and I'm here to protect our faculty and staff. I'm not a healthcare professional, nor do I pretend to be. The guidance that I go off of is the health department, the CDC, DESE, the DHSS, and those are our governing bodies. And then I get correspondence from the State Department that says if we do not follow these things, we are subject to liabilities. Okay, and those liabilities are negligence. And so I take that to heart as a superintendent. I don't want to provide guidance to my board that puts us in a bad situation. I understand your concerns, and I understand the quarantine situations, and I understand the hardships that are placed on parents, and we are trying to remedy those. We are supposed to get some updated guidance within the next week or two, and that comes down from our State Department. They're looking at relaxing some of the quarantine guidelines, but that's coming from the health department too, but I don't know what that looks like yet. And so we're ready to pivot at a moment's notice, but I need guidance from them to do so. Otherwise, I'm kind of stuck on where I'm at as a superintendent.
What if we provided some guidance?
So that's kind of where I'm at as a superintendent. And of course, I'm leaning on my board, trying to give them the best guidance I can based off the information that I have and the documents. So with that said, I'll just turn it over to the board for discussion.
There's a
What's your liability?
The Attorney General of Missouri has a class action lawsuit against the Columbia School District for mandating this and not giving parents the right to choose. So is Cape Girardeau going to be part of that class action lawsuit?
Mr. President, are we still on board discussion?
Yes.
If it's okay, I'd like to
offer my thoughts, and I apologize for not being there in person. I am out of town on business. And I do want to thank everyone, and I heard nearly all of the comments. I appreciate everyone who attended tonight's meeting and shared their thoughts on the district's procedures. I also want to make sure that administration and staff understand how much I appreciate their diligence in working to keep our students safe. Any decision that they make is going to be both celebrated and criticized at the same time. And I just want to know, I want to make sure they know how much I appreciate the impossible position they've been placed in, and also appreciate the professionalism that they've demonstrated and carried themselves with in these difficult circumstances. I am of the belief that we need to institute a masked and monitored program similar to what some other districts have done in Southeast Missouri. And that would be a program where students and staff who have COVID would be required to stay home. Students and staff who want to wear masks would be allowed to wear them. Students and staff who are not sick and have not been exposed would be allowed to attend school without having to wear a mask. Students and staff who have been exposed but who aren't sick would be allowed to stay home and quarantine, or they would have the option to quarantine, essentially quarantine at school with a masked and monitored program where they would for 10 days, they would have to wear a mask. They would have to submit to things like temperature checks and those sorts of things. And if at any time during that 10 days that they develop symptoms, they would be required to quarantine at home. The number of cases in Cape Girardeau County has remained relatively flat. The number of active cases has remained relatively flat since August 11th. On that day, the County Health Center made a Facebook post where they said that there were 320 active cases in Cape Girardeau County. Their Facebook post from today also indicates 320 active cases. So in the several weeks since August 11th, the cases have remained relatively flat. They fluctuated between around 420 down to around 250, which demonstrates that cases are not exploding in our community. Also, the number of daily active cases in Missouri peaked, new active cases peaked around August 6th. And in the 7 weeks since, while schools all over the state have gone back to school without mask mandates, the number of new daily active cases in the state of Missouri has steadily declined. I believe that we have taken steps to mitigate the damage that is done by COVID. I think it's time, based on the statistics in our community, the statistics in the state of Missouri, I think it's time for us to maybe take a step down and see how it goes by doing a modified, masked and monitored program as opposed to the one we have in place right now. I understand that I'm the opinions of others who may disagree.
Does anyone have any comments regarding that?
How do you manage something like that? How do you manage who's supposed to wear masks and who's not supposed to wear masks? And is that creating an undue additional workload on our teachers? And obviously we have a contact tracer who's also gonna have to keep track of all of that stuff.
We can't hear you.
Just logistically, how do we make something like that work?
We can't hear you.
So Jeff, Dr. Fagley asked the question, how do we go about monitoring a mask and monitor mandate similar to what you've suggested that other school districts?
Sure, and that's certainly a valid question. I would suggest we reach out to some of those other districts who have done it to get ideas from them on how they are implementing it. I know that some of the districts that are doing this have fewer students than we do, but I also have to assume that they also have fewer staff than we do. And I'm convinced that if there are other districts out there that are able to do this, our team has the ability to be able to do that.
I will email you the policy.
I think our team's ability to do things that other districts can't do.
Other schools also consulted with a local law firm here, and they gave them the go-ahead, with your state.
So I agree that we should reach out to schools who are doing things differently than us, and we've tried to do that all along and learn. And for those of you here who thinks I think anybody who acts like this is a super obvious choice isn't thinking about the totality of this.
Medical charity is a choice, and you say no.
So I can assure you, as a volunteer who's sitting here with 3 kids in this district, I have no desire to injure any kids in the Cape Girardeau Public Schools or inconvenience any parent in any way, shape, or form. And I've met with several of you on an individual basis and given my time to do that to learn more about your opinions. And I welcome it. I think the challenge is figuring out how do we make well-informed choices based on what's happening in other places, because everyone's facing the same fight, the same battle. And in this school board meeting, admittedly, it was unanimous in terms of the opinion of the folks who got time to speak. If you've been to past board meetings, it's unanimous the other direction. And so at some level, this isn't super obvious. And I'll say that because I feel like a relatively educated, well-informed person. I work in healthcare, I'm not a clinician. But at the end of the day, I think figuring out how do we as a district go take lessons learned from other places that are going down a different path. Because the answer is nobody's got this thing all figured out. They just don't. And we're learning as we go along. And I would ask for your grace as the community to say, we're trying to help figure it out. Because we realized the last time we changed our policy that we probably didn't have a COVID problem, we had a quarantine problem based on our policy. And our objective is to keep kids in school, not put them out of school. And ultimately doing that safely by keeping your kids or your grandkids or our staff and faculty safe is our #1 priority. And we might look at this through a little different lens, different people with different perspectives, and that's okay. And again, I want to commend everybody who talked because I think it's important for us to hear your opinions and your perspectives on it. But I would recommend reaching out to some of the districts, as Jeff mentioned, who've gone down a different pathway, and figure out what have their lessons learned been. Because my guess is they're doing things slightly different today than they were when they first started, to make it easier on faculty and staff to monitor who is supposed to be wearing a mask, who is not, and the logistics of some of this, which I'm sure are challenging. But with our staff, I'm sure we could navigate if that was a path that we chose to go down. But I think looking at that and figuring out what is working and how are they doing it, and is it working from their perspective, would be a worthwhile thing to do, just to get data points. Because we know what's happening in our district, but we don't know what's happening outside of our district because it's not our numbers to look at. And so having a deep dive, maybe Dr. Glass with the superintendent in Perry County, or in New Madrid or other places it's happening, I think would be a worthwhile lesson just to figure out what they would share in terms of their insights and their experience, and come back and potentially have a conversation about what we've learned, good, bad, or otherwise.
The only problem we have with that is that based on what Desi has said, what Mick has said of St. Louis, who's school attorneys for schools all over the state, and Misha has said is that if we go against what our county health department says, or against what the state or the CDC's guidelines are, then we are basically creating a liability issue. And if something comes down and we are sued because of it, they cannot represent us. And Misha has said if we go against those guidelines, then we will lose our activities rights to sports, band, any outside activities. So until the county health department changes their guidelines,
You don't need their approvals.
It doesn't.
Talk to them. They told us this
Y'all out of order, they having a meeting.
so the issue is if you go to New Madrid and ask them what they do, or you go to Perry County and ask them what they do, their health departments are doing things different than our health department. And until our health department changes their guidance or changes how they are doing things, our hands are tied. I mean, we have specific guidelines. that we have to
Mr.
follow.
President,
Yes, yes, sir.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
does Jackson have a mask mandate?
No.
We ain't in Jackson.
They don't have, they do not have mask and monitor though.
Well, like the teacher said, y'all do have all.
That's the thing I'm struggling with is our county health department telling Cape Girardeau Public Schools that they have to have a mask mandate, but not telling other schools in the county that they have to have a mask mandate? That's what I struggle with.
They're not telling us we have to have a mandate. They're telling us how we have to quarantine, is what they're telling us. And that's what we're following, is that protocol of quarantine. They're not telling us that we have to have a mask mandate. What we want is to keep our kids in school. And in order to do that, if we continue to follow the protocol, the only way to do that is if everyone has a mask on.
Stop contact tracing.
We don't have a choice but to contact trace.
You do.
We do
You
not.
have a choice to not report it.
Y'all carry on.
And that's what I'm very proud of right now, is that we do have a great contact tracer. And she digs and makes sure that she covers everybody that student's been in contact with. So if we're guilty of anything, it is following the letter of the CDC and the local health department, which I feel is the right place to be. If that changes, I'm all about pivoting and changing and relaxing the quarantine guidelines. But right now, as a superintendent, there's no way I can recommend otherwise without jeopardizing this district. And it's just a hard position that I'm in. Our MSHA just sent out a blast. It said from day one, we have stated that schools must follow their local health department guidance and expectations for dealing with the pandemic. I mean, it's pretty clear. If we want to compete in MSHA activities, then we must follow our local health department. It really doesn't matter what Perry County does or Scott County does. If our local health department doesn't say that Cape Girardeau Public Schools can do this, then we're outside of MSHA guidance.
So what about Jackson School?
We're not responsible for what
I'm not
happens in
gonna
Jackson.
I can't speak to Jackson School. I can't speak to Jackson Schools.
Well, you say the health department monitors everyone in the county.
But they don't police. They don't police. They make it very clear they do not police.
Then you have the choice, the free choice, to give your children the free choice. And to change the policy, it makes sense for all the kids here.
The only choice we have is to follow what we are told to follow. No, we don't.
Yes, you do.
In order to.
In America, you do have a choice.
Wow.
Show me the legal document that says you're liable.
And they
Show it to
still
me.
y'all.
In writing, you have that legal document.
We have our Constitution, the U.S. Missouri Constitution. We're a sovereign state.
And it's
We're the same.
county,
Anyone else have
and they say
anything
y'all
else?
can
Who
always
cares if
move
you
to
lose money?
Jackson.
How much money you gonna lose? 5%, 3%? Is it really worth your child's health?
They doing it better in Jackson. It's the option.
Extra, that's great. You don't need that to educate.
Dr. Glass, when is the health department meeting again?
Tomorrow.
Wait, will
Zoom.
This-
Tomorrow on Zoom.
will we be able to attend that, or is anybody from the school district there?
open.
It's open? Okay.
No, it's on Zoom.
We've had staff members attend that.
Okay.
I mean,
They're dictators. They're on Zoom.
No, we don't
it may
have
be on
anything
Zoom,
to
but it should be
do in
open.
America.
Yeah, I think it is. Okay.
They're using your numbers to justify going on Zoom because they didn't want to listen to us last month. And I have met with the director multiple times, like just a few of us. And she has assured me over and over that she does not give you guidance. I mean, like, because we keep hearing this kind of circular thing, and everybody else kind of wants to solve this, they want it to be done, not the health board, but the director of health department. I mean, there's been 150 cases
Like,
in a year
like
and
the
a half.
black students do when they get treated bad, they just go
They-
somewhere else. That's what they do, when the black students get treated badly, they just move somewhere else. And that's how it goes, if y'all not happy with the situation, y'all can.
Okay.
So does the board have anything that they would like to add?
It's America, it's free, you can go wherever you want to.
Okay,
Folks, please.
please.
Folks, please.
This
Quiet
is,
down.
That's how it is.
this is a public meeting, but it's not a meeting to have a discussion between the public and the board. This is an informational meeting.
Well, don't start with me.
I'm not,
Don't start with me.
I'm not starting with anybody.
Okay.
I'm just telling you this.
They've been talking all night, so don't start when I start.
The next black thing.
I don't care if it's black or orange or blue. If you don't like the mask, then go
So board, basically what we need to do is decide, do we want to do something different? Do we want to maintain the procedure that we've put in place already? What does the board want to do? The long and the short of it is, we as a board have two responsibilities. One is to educate our children, and two is to keep them safe while they're in our custody. The whole reason that we put the procedure in place was when we started without masks, the numbers drastically took off on the amount of quarantined and active cases there were. So the procedure was, if our attendance rate dropped below 90%, we would enforce the masks so we could get the number under control to keep our kids back in school rather than quarantining. At the point, we had 600 of our students out of school because of contacts.
Please stop.
So we either need to change our procedure that was put in place, which allows Dr. Glass to put the masks on until we can get the number under control, or we take them off and we ride the roller coaster again. So what does the board want to do?
Well, I definitely don't want to be in a situation where if we went back to how we started the school year to where, okay, now we're not wearing masks, and then in 5 days our attendance drops and then we have to put the mask back on. I think that's confusing and a big enough struggle for our kids in our community too. So I think it'd be more important to be consistent, and we can be consistent if we follow the protocol that we're following right now. I hate masks too. I hate COVID, but I'm not a health professional, and that would be acting like one if we were making up our own protocol. And I'm not prepared to do that.
Your health professional gave you advice.
So, speaking for myself, when I was in favor of moving to masks as a part of, the protocol in terms of really minimizing the amount of quarantines we're facing and get some predictability, to Matt's point, the only way to avoid quarantines under current CDC guidelines is to ensure both people are masked in a close contact. That's the only way I've seen in doing it. And so the challenge is, how do you avoid continual cycle of quarantine when positive cases arise if you do not have on mask? That is my question. And I realize that masking isn't the end game, because ultimately this could be around forever.
It is.
But ultimately figuring out, how do we ensure, based on governing bodies that are above this board in terms of determining what we should or should not be doing. And I agree with Matt's point. We could have any number of clinicians sit before this board or any other and offer their testimony as an expert, and you could have somebody else who has equal credentials or superior or similar offer exactly 180 degrees the opposite clinically. And we've seen that, and it happens every day. Turn on TV, it happens every day. And so I think I am in favor of figuring out, is there a way to potentially have some conversation with folks on the Cape County Health Board and have some conversation around the catch-22 we're in, which for anybody who wasn't paying attention or couldn't hear, that one of the challenges we face is the Missouri High School State Athletic Association says that if you were in violation of your county health department's protocols relative to COVID-19, then that any student, athlete, band member, any extracurricular activity will be ineligible to participate if they are not in concordance with those requirements as delineated by your county health department, which is the fundamental difference, as Kyle articulated, between Scott County and Perry County, is that we're in Cape County. And ultimately the question is, are we going to abide by the rules of the county that we're a part of or not? And I would say, I would rather have that conversation with them around the potential catch-22 that we're in right now and have a meaningful dialogue about it, because we're a little bit in a chicken and egg situation, and that's a fact. And again, I think if they're meeting tomorrow, potentially having some conversation, I would be in favor of staying exactly where we are in a policy right now, having some conversation and figuring out, is there a better place that we can land that keeps kids safe, that maximizes the number of kids who are in school, that doesn't propose unnecessary risk for the district, And leverages learning that other communities have had, that are trying to navigate the same problem.
Yeah, Dr. Glass, could we put together, take our flow chart we have right now and take that to the health department for a modified mask and monitor kind of approach that we've seen and talked about? Take it to the health department and see what they say about it and if they could bless it, so to speak, that way?
That's a good thought.
I mean, just proactively go out to them instead of waiting. And again, the circular discussions of nobody wants liability, all that kind of stuff. But could we proactively go to them and say, here would be a pitch? And I know it's super short notice with being tomorrow, but I mean, I agree. I'm not a fan of this, but boy, it sure would be nice to at least have something in place. That way everybody's there. I mean, we've all had quarantines and I concur completely. That's the big challenge is the quarantine
Now,
side.
did you say, Dr. Glass, there's gonna be some quarantine changes potentially coming?
That's what the county health department told me.
Yeah, and
So it could be as early as tomorrow.
Could be. They didn't give me a time. They said it was coming from the governor's office.
Would the board please address or put on your agenda to address the quarantining of students and how you're going to educate them fairly and equally? Because it is lacking.
That's a fair point. I think we've got to figure out, to the extent that there is likely for the foreseeable future going to be some number of students who are going to be in quarantine and absent from the school, figuring out how do we have some continuity around that. My guess is it's a huge challenge and, I had kids that were quarantined last year multiple times, and so I'm not trying to put myself in anybody's shoes. It stinks. It 100% stinks. And I'm blessed that I could do it and work from home, and my wife could, and so we're in a different situation than some, and I know nobody wants to, have their kid quarantined and feel like they're getting behind in school. That's not our intention, and that's something we should work on. And I think we've got the ability now with Canvas and other programs to probably do better at that than we've ever done before. But we shouldn't let kids down on that. I'll be the first to say, I agree with your points. And if we're doing that, we need to do better.
Agreed.
Board have anything else? So at this time, we're going to put together a proposal to take to the county health department. To
No discussion.
Discussion. Okay. So we're going to continue the procedures we have in place until we can get the blessing from the health department. Okay. Is everyone all right with that?
Mr. President, I think we need to vote on that according to the new Missouri statute that was passed during the last legislative session.
Vote on what? Talking health department?
We need to vote on continuing the procedure that's in place.
So you're talking about from House Bill 271?
Yes.
So that is by 50% of the attorneys that are out there say yes and 50% say no.
Well, I have no problem going on the record saying I would support keeping the policy exactly as is today. If there's guidance coming down as soon as tomorrow on this, with the plan to go reach out to the county health department and ultimately kind of figure out is there a way to reconcile, somewhat of the catch-22 that we're in right now in terms of getting students to go participate in things in Missouri State High School Athletic Association and other things to make sure we're in congruence with where our county health department is. Because I think the discontinuity of changing today and then changing it tomorrow makes no sense to me.
I agree.
So Jeff, were you making a motion?
I didn't make the motion, but I think someone needs to.
I'll make a motion that we continue to stay exactly where we are right now, pending further conversation with the Cape County Health Department and reconciling where we need to be from a quarantine policy standpoint.
I'll second it.
But I don't think that's what Jeff was.
So you wanting to vote?
Yes.
So make a motion.
That we vote on.
That we
maintaining
vote.
I would make a motion that we vote on maintaining the current masking and quarantine policy at Cape Girardeau Public Schools.
Okay, so there was a motion that was sent out previously. Says the motion is to approve an order requiring persons entering Cape Girardeau Public School District buildings to wear masks that cover the nose and mouth. The duration of this order shall not exceed the limitations set forth in section 67.265 of the revised statutes of the state of Missouri and may be extended pursuant to the legal requirements set forth in that same section. This order may be terminated at any time by a simple majority of the Board of Education. So is that what you're making the motion to?
What, to me, this is just a clarification of our current policy. Would you agree with that statement?
No, this is something that is different, but
I guess my preference would be to mandate, or keep exactly what we have right now, and not this. Like our current policy in Cape Girardeau Public Schools right now, both quarantine and masking policies that every building, for every person who enters.
well, it's not a policy, it is a procedure, so there is a difference.
I would maintain the current procedure.
Isn't this motion just the motion that we have to vote on every month to
So
continue
this-
it going?
So the opinion of some attorneys is that because House Bill 271 came down, that if we issue a health order that limits access to schools for longer than 30 days out of 180 days, that we as a governing body have to vote to allow our superintendent the authority to extend that order out. And again, MSBA says, no, we don't have to vote on it. Other attorneys say we do have to vote on it. The Attorney General says you have to follow House Bill 271, but no one can agree what House Bill 271 says. So now, if we don't vote on it, or we don't agree with it, the worst thing that's gonna happen is the Attorney General, if they make it through the whole court system, will put a cease and desist order on masks. And so you would open up, there's no criminal penalty, there's no monetary penalty, it's just some agree with it, some don't agree with it,
Yeah.
and they can't figure out how to determine what the actual law is saying. So we either need to vote on this understanding or not vote on it, either way, whatever. But we need to give him some guidance on what we want him to do, so.
And I guess to me, as much as we take guidance from the Missouri State School Board Association, to me, if their guidance is to not vote on this, I would take that guidance. I mean, we take their guidance on innumerable things during my short tenure here.
They write our policies.
Yeah.
And they approve our policies.
That would be my advice.
And I would agree with that.
Yep.
Now, we as a governing board can authorize Dr. Glass to continue the procedure that we put in place last year until we can meet with the health board, and we don't have to vote on that.
That'd be my preference.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mr. President, I'd like to state for the record that I disagree with MSBA. I believe that House Bill is clear and does apply to school districts. And I believe that this, as the governing body, should vote on this in order for it to be legal.
So are you making a motion?
We already have a motion.
I didn't make the motion.
I have a motion on the floor right now. By Mr. Armstrong, seconded by Mr. Walker, to maintain the current face mask and quarantine procedure. That's what I heard.
Okay.
Did you hear me? That's what I heard. No, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's accurate.
So we're voting on that motion, which is to maintain the current procedure.
Yeah.
until
That's
we
the
can-
motion on the floor that.
That was what I said.
Yes.
Okay.
Was that what you,
Say it again, I'm sorry.
to maintain the current face mask and quarantine procedure?
Yes. That would be my motion.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Kyle.
So the motion that was made by Paul was to maintain the current face mask and quarantine procedure as in place.
Okay, thank you.
And Paul made the motion and you Matt,
I did
you
second.
seconded. So does anyone want to discuss that further?
And to be clear, that is based upon us following our health department and the CDC guidelines. So if that does change tomorrow, then we can follow their recommendations and their guidance tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned.
As long as that motion has, you give the superintendent the authority to do so,
Correct.
which I didn't hear that in there.
But is that not what we're
Otherwise,
currently under?
Otherwise, we'd have to reconvene.
Reconvene.
Okay.
Which I'm fine doing that too. I
Yeah.
mean, if something changes, we reconvene.
Yeah.
So should we amend the motion to read?
But is that not what we're currently under though? Is you have the ability to do that?
I have the ability to do that for 30 days.
And his motion was to continue what we're currently doing, so it would, in my interpretation, that's an extension of your authority to do so.
Yeah, that's what I was on the same page there.
And there's nothing wrong with reconvening at any time.
And there's not, no.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I hope we would.
Got that?
Okay. Are we changing the word
No.
of the motion?
No.
So to continue the procedure that is in place for masking and quarantining. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, the motion is approved, 6-1. And Dr. Glass, are you going to check with the health department when we can meet with them, or?
I will meet with
We'll
them.
meet. All right. That concludes the business for this evening. Does anyone have any information or proposals from any board members?
Mr. President, I just want to thank the board members for their comments and for their positions on this. I know that I disagree with other board members on this, but I know that they are all sincerely interested in what's in the best interest of our students and their health, and I appreciate them for this vote.
Jeff, I appreciate the comments, as does the other board members.
Of course.
If there is nothing else for the good of the board, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Paul and Jared, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned.